Hello everyone, Rebecca here from Simple Suburban Living, and in this video I am going to show you how to dehydrate celery. Okay, tastes like celery, what can I say? Now I have dehydrated celery before, and when I did, I didn't blanch the celery. I just cut it up into little, maybe 1/4 inch pieces, and put it on the dehydrator tray and turned it on. And I have to tell you, I think it turned out fine. However, it had been quite some time since I've done this. So before I was going to do this, I looked up online like how to dehydrate celery, and every set of instructions that I found said to blanch the celery first. Now, obviously, blanching is an extra step. I don't like to do extra steps if I don't have to. And so, but I was curious, what if it really makes a difference? What if the celery looks better? What if it tastes better? And so on. So I thought that the best way to find out would be to blanch one bunch of celery and then dehydrate it, and not blanch the other one. Now I bought these at the same time, and so they should be more or less the same quality and all of that. I did notice, I've had these in the fridge, and you can see the one that I'm not going to blanch is, I think it must have been stuck back further in the fridge, and it's looking pretty yucky up here. But I'm going to be cutting that part off anyway, so I think that it'll be okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off the tops and also this bottom part, and then I'm going to wash each stalk of celery, make sure there's no dirt in it whatsoever, and then I'm going to slice it. A recipe that I saw, instructions that I saw, I believe it was on a site called Spruce Eats, said to cut in about 3-inch pieces and blanch it for 1 minute, and then you drain the water and you run cold water over it. And then slice it into 1/2-inch pieces. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I've got a pot of water on to boil now, and what I'll do, like I said, is I'm going to blanch. That just means throw it in boiling water for 1 minute, dump off the boiling water, and then I will proceed to the next step. Actually, I decided to go ahead and turn the camera back on so you could see me do this part. And then I'm just going to cut off this top part of each one. And I have other things I'll use those on, so none of this is going to be wasted. I think what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and cut it into these bigger pieces. Dropped one. And for the blanching part. Now when I do the part that I'm not blanching, I'm not going to cut in, I'm just going to cut it into smaller pieces right from the beginning. I suspect that the recipe that says to do this before blanching maybe doesn't want you to have too small of pieces, or else maybe they would cook too much in the blanching process. I'm suspecting that's the case. All right. All right, I'm going to head to the kitchen. I don't know if the water is boiling yet, but I'm going to rinse these off, and then once the water comes to a boil, I'll pop them in the water for 1 minute, and then I will drain the water and run some cold water over it to stop the cooking process, and then I'll bring you back. Just to be able to keep track of things, I will probably put the blanched ones on the top trays and the unblanched ones on the bottom trays. Okay? Now, to be honest with you, I'm kind of hoping that the blanching doesn't make a difference, you know, because obviously then if it does, then I'll need to do it from here on out in the future. And, you know, which is fine. It's worth doing it right if it really makes a difference. It's worth the extra step. But I'm just not, I just want to be convinced that it actually makes a difference. And if it does, then by all means, I'll start doing it. So what I'm going to do when I do the actual dehydrating is I will be sure to keep track of the time and let you know how long the dehydrating process takes. And bearing in mind that the top trays will be blanched, and therefore not so much because they're blanched, I don't think, but because they're at the top tray. And in my dehydrator, it's Nesco, which you'll see here in just a minute, is that the ones near the top are going to dry faster. And so that I don't get confused about what's what, I'm not going to change the trays. Sometimes I rotate the trays, but since I don't want to get confused about which ones are blanched and which ones were not, I'm just going to keep the blanched ones at the top. And because of that, they're going to dehydrate faster. So the speed of dehydration is not part of the test. I actually thought about dehydrating these on separate days, but then I really don't want these ones that I'm not blanching to sit in the fridge longer because, you know, it could degrade the quality of them. And again, I don't want that to skew the results or skew, you know, my conclusions about what works best. And obviously you'll want to make sure to stay tuned to the end so you'll know the conclusion of my experiment. Okay, I'm going to go see if the water is boiling, and if so, I'm going to go ahead and blanch the one bunch. Okay, you can see that the water is boiling, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this celery into it. Okay, I'm going to drain it now. I won't be able to be holding onto the camera when I'm doing that. But, you know, there's nothing too exciting about draining and rinsing it. Okay, I lied. I decided to go ahead and show me draining it. Well, not draining it. I've already drained it. I'm rinsing it with cold water. And the idea is to stop the cooking. All right, and then I'm going to take it back and cut it up. So I'm just kind of spreading these out on the tray. And since I don't have a ton of celery, I'll hopefully be able to just have one tray of each. And that'll just make keeping track of everything super easy. And I'll know that my top tray is the blanched one. And the second tray is the unblanched. By the way, if you have dehydrated celery or other vegetables, I would love to hear your experience. Do you typically blanch the vegetables before dehydrating? I'm sure there's people who have different opinions, but that's wonderful. I actually love it when people have different opinions because, you know, we can all learn from each other, and I think it's great to not always think the same way. Okay, now this was one of the inner kind of pieces, and it's a little bit lighter, but I have that over in the other unblanched bowl of celery that I've cut up as well. And, you know, obviously it'll be pretty clear that those are anomalies, you know, when there's one that's not very, you know, parts of one that are lighter or darker than others. That's just sort of the way that celery is, right? By the way, in the grocery haul video where I showed me buying this, or talked about buying this, I mentioned that I was going to dehydrate and can celery. But since I've decided to do this test, I will only be dehydrating, and I'll have to try canning celery another time. So be sure to subscribe so you can be notified when I do that. All right, so this isn't perfectly laid out, but I have them spread out pretty well. They're not really overlapping. So this is the tray that I'm going to put on top. I'm going to just push it aside over here, get another tray, and then I'll put this bowl on the other tray. And obviously I've already got it all cut up, so I just need to kind of spread it out. think I ended up with more of the unblanched. So let's hope that the blanching doesn't really make a difference, because otherwise I have this celery that won't be as nice. But I have to tell you, like I said, I've done it before, unblanched, and it was fine, I thought. So the question is not whether or not it's going to turn out okay if you don't blanch it. The bigger question is if it turns out better if you blanch it. Okay, now I'm putting that tray of the blanched on top. Oops, you know what? I realized I have this tray. I don't know if you can see, but there's these little pokey things. Those should go down. So I'm going to pull this little screen off and turn the tray over. In the grand scheme of things, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but why not give it every last advantage, right? Okay, and I'll fill up one more tray, and then I'll get them started. You'll have to excuse the appearance of this tray. I ended up dehydrating some canned chipotles with that adobo sauce and making chipotle powder out of them. And when I did that, the tray, oh brother, look at, I'm doing the same thing again. I've got the pokies going the wrong way. Can you tell that I always forget about that until it's too late? Okay, so I just flipped it over and I have all of the celery spread out. Okay, so the two bottom trays are not blanched and the top tray is blanched. All right, so I'm going to put it into my dehydrator and I'm going to set it, let's see if I can have here, at 135, okay? So I will bring you back once they're dehydrated, and actually I'll probably bring you back a couple of times just to show you how long things took. And we'll talk about it a little bit so you can know what to expect. And then at the end, I'm going to do a comparison of the blanched versus the unblanched. See you in a bit. Okay, it's been about 3 hours. This is the celery that I blanched. It's still extremely moist, which I expected. I didn't expect it to be anywhere close to being ready at this point, but I just wanted to check and see what it looks like. Now let's compare it to what the non-blanched is looking like. Now I think I'm kind of tempted to go ahead and combine these two now that they're kind of shrinking up a little bit. So I really don't think that I need to have them on separate trays. So okay, so you can see that this is the blanched, this is the not blanched, and I don't really know how obvious it is. Okay, you can see that the unblanched is a little darker looking, but the blanched is a little bit brighter looking. Okay, I'm going to put it back in for about 3 more hours, and then I'll bring it back and see what it looks like at that point. Okay, we are now 7 hours in to this, and this is the top tray, the one that had been blanched, and there's certain ones like this piece that are completely dry, but there's still some other pieces like this one here that are still very pliable and still have a lot of moisture. So there's a couple of things that I can do here. I can pick off the ones that are really dry and then just keep drying the rest. But what I think I'm going to do, because it's also getting kind of late now and I don't want to, stay up super long waiting for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it just keep drying overnight, and it'll be totally fine. That doesn't hurt it at all to let it go longer, because there's enough pieces that just feel, I wish you could feel them, they just feel still kind of squishy like. I don't know if you can tell that, see, they're really bendable versus, say, a piece like this that, well, see, even that actually has some bend to it now that I touch it. Let me see about this one. Yeah, even that has a little moisture. So I'm going to let it go overnight. Okay, but let's compare the blanched tray to the tray that I didn't blanch. Now first let me say that this is even less dry because I had the blanched tray on top. But I honestly, from a looks perspective, I am not seeing a big difference. The top tray is more dry, but the color and stuff really is quite a bit the same, I think. Now, once these are completely dry, I might decide that the taste of the ones that have been blanched is better. Okay, so we'll see. For right now, I'm just going to go ahead and keep letting them dry overnight. And they should be good and dry in the morning, and then I'll be able to do my final comparison as to whether or not I think that blanching made a difference. See you in the morning. Hey, good morning, everyone. So the celery has now been in the dehydrator all night long, and before I record this segment, I just want to say my apologies. There's a lot going on outside around me, so if all of a sudden you hear a bunch of noise, that's just the way it is. I put this off because there's a lot of yard work and leaf blowing and stuff going on. So if you hear that, my apologies. But anyway, I have had the celery going for about 20 hours now. Now it doesn't take that long, but I got tired, and so I decided to go to bed last night and leave it going because that doesn't hurt. But I'm going to show you now how it has turned out. This is a celery that has been blanched, and this is a celery that was not blanched. Now, I have to tell you, I am not really seeing a difference. So there's blanched right there and unblanched right there. To me, they look more or less the same. So a key is going to be tasting, and I'm going to go ahead and just taste the dehydrated celery and see how that is. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and taste the dehydrated celery, both the blanched and the unblanched. This is the blanched. I told you there's a lot of noise around here. Okay. Tastes like celery, what can I say? Okay, this is interesting because, in my opinion, and I know there's a lot that will disagree with me, but the unblanched celery actually has a stronger celery flavor, at least in the dehydrated form. Now, some could maybe say it tastes more bitter, but to me it just tastes like celery. So I will try rehydrating it, and I'm going to show you that as well, and I'll give it a taste test after I rehydrate it. So be back in just a minute. So now I'm going to rehydrate a piece of the blanched. The blanched is going in the yellow dish, and the unblanched is going in the pink bowl. And I'm going to let them sit for a couple minutes till they rehydrate well, and then I'll come back. Okay, so in the interest of time, I've decided to go ahead and taste test it. It's kind of funny because I'm, here at my mom's, my 89-year-old mom's home, mobile home park, 55 plus, and in many ways it's quiet, but you would think that there's a lot going, you don't realize how much is going on until you decide to try to make a video. And my mom and her dog are out for a walk right now, and so before they come back, I want to wrap this up, and I'm going to go ahead and taste these partially rehydrated ones and let you know what I think. This is the has been blanched. My husband's pointing. My mom's coming back right now, so I better chew fast. Okay, has decent celery taste. Let me try the unblanched. Trying to chew fast before she comes in. And I have to say, honestly, in my opinion, I prefer the unblanched. So I'm going to save myself the trouble of blanching in the future, And if you have a different opinion or the same opinion or whatever, either way, feel free to leave me a comment below about your experience or your questions when it comes to dehydrating celery. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you later. Oh, of course, I have to ask. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, and I really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.